Hey, friends, and welcome to March. This is one of the busiest times of year in the beekeeping world as spring is finally hitting, temperatures are warmer. This is when our bees are all growing. It's so exciting, and I so look forward to this time of year. It seems like almost no matter what you do, bees just grow, and that makes it so exciting. If we haven't met yet, my name is Blake. I'm one of the owners of the Bee Supply, and getting to spend 30, 40 minutes with you guys talking about bees, talking about what's going on in the spring is just always one of the highlights of my month. So we have a lot of ground to cover because it's spring. And so not only are we always busy as beekeepers, but the bees are incredibly busy. And our job in the spring is to just support them and help them grow. Before we jump in, I have to bring this up again. I so appreciate you guys. I mean, the Golden Rules of Beekeeping book, I've talked about it the last few webinars, is flying off the shelves. We are selling hundreds and hundreds of copies every month. It's doing so much better than I even could have expected. So I want to thank all of you guys for your support. We just continue to get folks write in post reviews on the website just saying, hey, this has been so helpful. It's really helped me understand beekeeping at a level I never did. I've been keeping bees for 3 years, and reading this so much just clicked because I had so many unanswered questions. And this book really helped answer so many things I've never known. So it's been helpful for a lot of folks. A lot of folks are using it for their beginning beekeeping classes. Um, we have a lot of folks that are kind of using it as their textbook to give beginner beekeepers of, hey, this is kind of everything you need to know about beekeeping, especially in your first handful of years of beekeeping, or to use as an ongoing reference. So feedback has been just humbling, and Cayman and I are so appreciative of all that everyone has done, and so many of you that have gone out and purchased it. So thank you. If you want to buy a copy, if you haven't bought one yet, scan that QR code and it'll take you to the web page where you can buy a copy. If you haven't ordered bees yet, hurry. It's March. The early dates are largely sold out, but we do have some later dates still available. If you want to purchase bees, we've got nucs, single stories, packages. We've got several different breeds of packages: Italians, Carnolians, Saskatraz, the Randy Oliver Golden West. Lots of different options for you with bees. So if you haven't gotten that order in yet, highly encourage you to do that before everybody starts selling out. Sherry, what do we have for March topics?
Hey, how's
Hey,
it
good to see you.
going?
Wonderful.
You know what I love about this time of year? The trees get leaves again.
Finally.
It's,
Finally.
oh my gosh, we can go to the bee yard and see all. It's just like a refreshing breath of fresh air. And I am so, so,
Yes,
so glad with all the rest of the beekeepers that we are finally here, right?
me too. Can't wait. I love it.
Good, 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 good. Well, we know that some folks up north are probably not, um, they're not as warm as we are, and we probably are looking at several more weeks for some of y'all up north. But you know what? Every single one of these topics that we cover within just a few weeks are going to pertain to you as well. We will try not to rub it in your nose too much that we are nice and warm and spring is here for us in Texas. But getting past that. So March topics, and they are all on the website now. So get on there and get with them. But if you're not signed up for our emails, please do so because that's my job, y'all. And I want you to see me every week. So I've got an email that goes out for the bee supply that has this article each week, plus at least two other companions that go with it, usually a video and another companion article. And y'all, this stuff it's pertinent, it's practical, it's what you need to know right now. So please sign up in the know on the under the Texas TBS monthly articles tab and put your email in there. And if you have trouble with it, email me and I'll put you on there myself. So week one, we're going to talk about tips for feeding colonies in spring. Really kind of So you need to read this. Do I feed? Do I not feed? I see trees blooming. There's pollen coming in. Your mind can go crazy. So we're going to lay it all out, what you need to do, what you don't need to do. Week two, Varroa IPM, integrated pest management. big deal, y'all. This is a big deal. We don't just treat our bees for varroa mites and just pretend like we just throw something at them and we're done, one and done. It's not that easy. We want you to use a lot of things that aren't chemical necessarily. So this article is great and covers that in detail. Week 3, identifying and preventing swarms. Can you believe we're talking about swarms? I know our hives, oh my gosh, they are building so fast. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute, but that's a good article. Week 4, simple splits, tips on how to grow your bee yard using your own bees. As much as we love selling you good, new, beautiful hives, you really have got to learn how to use your own bee yard to multiply your bees, because it's, if you don't, your bees are going to leave and they're going to make somebody else bees. So you want to keep them. All right, Blake, slide that slide and let's talk about identifying and preventing swarms. Like I said, in the warmer climates, our area, Blake's area, we are seeing populations increase exponentially. Boxes are filling up right before our eyes. You really need to know the signs of what is happening. So if you're looking in your hive now or within the next few weeks and you see that they're becoming over 80% full, overcrowding is absolutely why bees swarm. Okay. If they don't have enough room to expand, the queen doesn't have enough room to lay, they don't have enough room to work, they're going to book it. Half of them are going to go so that they leave room for the other half. So overcrowding, that's your number one sign. Swarm cells. Obviously, that's a pretty good sign, right? If you're seeing swarm cells, that's a good sign. And then hanging out on the front of the hive. Now, this one, I want you to read the article for detail on it, but that's sometimes that means swarm, probably depending on your area, ours mainly. If you're in a tropical zone like we are, they'll hang out just because it's so hot, but you need to know what it looks like. So read the article. What if you see swarm cells? Boy, that's the $1 million question. You can't just necessarily go in and chop them out. Now, I have a dear friend that thinks that believes that you can. I won't mention any names. He's on the internet, has a big YouTube channel. I love him dearly. But I know, I'm going to tell you, it's hard. Because if you've got multiple swarm cells and they're hiding them up in some certain places and you miss one, that theory's on. It's out the window, right? So if you see swarm cells, you know that it's happening. And I want to read this real quick. A hive normally swarms around the time swarm cells are being capped. So that gives you kind of a date certain. If you see them at that, I've developed into my little peanut and it's about to be capped, boy, it's getting close. If you see them capped, guess what? You need to be looking at the population that's in there, see if they have already swarmed and take measures. I've got links to other articles in this article that will help you along with that. So let's assume that you caught it before it swarmed. What do you do? You've seen swarm cells. You can split the hive. I'll go into detail about how to do that and take those swarm cells and do some little wonderful little manipulation and work with those. Wipe out the swarm cells. I mentioned that. I'll talk about that in here, but read it with caution of what you can do. And then this one, I put it in here, but it's just kind of like, okay, let them swarm, and then capture the swarm. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, I've not had very many swarms in all the hundreds of bees we've had. But when I have had one swarm, it was at the top of a, 50-foot tree that I wasn't able to get to. But if you can capture them and recapture them and re-put them, then that's okay too. But I caution that. Some have limited success with capturing the queen, trapping her. Read about that in this article. That's an option. Swarm prevention, that's the key. And that probably should be first, but really we always end up with that. And then we have to go, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to do this ever again. Swarm prevention truly means providing enough space. If you don't provide enough, and I'm going all the way down to the takeaway, you really do need to provide enough space. You can keep adding boxes to make space if it's too early yet. Queens aren't quite available, even though it's super warm outside. We're waiting on the drone population to go up. Learn the biology if you don't know that. But really just managing your hives, managing the space that they do, and some tips that I put in this article that'll be super helpful, that you can prevent swarms. The takeaway, provide enough space, like I just said, and requeen yearly. If you don't requeen, you're going to end up with first of all, it's an older queen that doesn't necessarily perform like you want it to. And new queens don't have that swarm propensity. They've got I'm here, I'm taking care of this house, and I'm going to lay as many eggs as I can, and really, we're going to make a really great hive. So keep that new queen, provide enough space, and you should be good. And look for that article when it comes out. Thanks, Blake.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherry. That's always fantastic. Thanks for that, all the incredible work you do to keep all of our customers educated. A quick update for you guys. I love telling you what's going on in California. It's the biggest pollination event of the year. Basically, every commercially managed beehive is in California this time of year, pollinating the almond crops. You've probably seen me talk about it many, many times. And this year's a little bit interesting in that it's ending extremely early. These are actually pictures from last year, but the almond bloom is largely over. It's about 2 weeks early. So interesting that it's ending so quickly, but we've had very warm spring. And I'll show you some graphics that show that in just a minute. But this is petal fall. So these are the petals that are falling out of the tree. It looks like snow, right? I mean, it's not, it's 75, 80 degrees, but the when the petals start falling out of the almond trees, it just looks like snow on the ground. It's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, well, let's jump out into the bee yard and see what the bees are up to, and then we'll come back in for some Q&A and a little more classroom time.
I want to take a quick look at this hive because I saw something in it earlier. About half the time when I make these videos, well, about 90% of the time, I don't actually know what I'm going to say until I open up the hive, and I'm just kind of giving a real life commentary on what I'm seeing in the hive and what to do about it. About 10% of the time, I'll like crack it open real quick and see what's coming before I open it. But I cracked this one up real quick, and I saw something I wanted to show you guys. It's a really good hive. You know, it's full of bees. These are our Texas 5000 bees, and they overwintered really, really well. I've got pretty much a box full of honey. This one was a little high with Varroa mites, and so we went ahead and did the Apivar treatment. You can see we've got the strips in this, 2 strips in the top box, 2 strips in the bottom box. March is a really good time to treat for mites. If you've got high mite loads, I highly recommend you check out some of our videos on how to test for mites, because March, they don't have a ton of brood in most cases, but they are brooding up, and you still got time to get a treatment started and finished before you get anywhere close to the honey flow. So definitely plan on testing for Varroa mites and getting that treatment done in March. But what this hive had, if you check it out, this is what a lot of people have questions about. You've got this burr comb all on the top bars, and you've got this white larva that you've exposed as you've broken open this box. And this is drone brood, and it's super common to see, especially in the spring, that you know, the bees are starting to rear drones, and a super common place for them to do that is on the top bars between the boxes. And when you break the boxes open, you expose that drone brood. So I want to see if I can give you guys a bit of a closer view, because this is really a helpful thing to be aware of as a beekeeper. As you are going through your hive, when you see this drone brood, pardon my lack of camera skills, but when you see this drone brood, number one, it's a good sign. It means that your hive is healthy and strong enough to start rearing drones. And then secondarily, it means that the bees have just set up a great rough gauge for you to check your Varroa mite levels. So when I see this drone brood in a hive, between the frames, I always look at these larvae. You know, you can move them with your hive tool, you can pick them up, you can look at them in your hand, and see if you see any Varroa mites on them. Now, unfortunately, these drone larvae aren't going to survive. The bees will clean them out once you've opened the box. But I don't want to see Varroa mites on these larvae. Now, remember, Varroa like drone larvae and drone brood more than worker bee brood. So usually, if they usually they'll migrate to this drone brood first, and so it's not as good as doing a sugar test or an alcohol wash. But you know, if I'm looking at these larvae and I'm seeing Varroa mites all over them, that's a problem. If I'm not seeing any, that's a great sign. So here's one that does have a Varroa mite on it. So if you see this little larva right on the tip of it there, see if I can get into the camera. That little speck, that's a Varroa mite. So it's pretty obvious. You'll see it crawling around, and so again, it's not a great scientific test. But you know, if I'm digging through 10 or 15 of these, and I'm only seeing 0 or 1, maybe 2 Varroa mites, I'm not that concerned. If I'm seeing like, oh wow, every other larva has a Varroa mite on it, okay, now I'm a little more concerned. So here's a piece of drone brood, and you can see right here, you know, there's that. See if I can focus in on it a little bit. There's that little speck, so you can see that Varroa mite right there. You can see him crawling around right there on that drone brood. So again, I probably went through 10 or 15 of these little cells, and I found 2. We're already treating this hive. We already found a bit of a mite issue. So, you know, we've already got a treatment underway, so I'm not too concerned about it. But you know, if you see 2 or 3 or 4 Varroa mites between the frames, you know, it's a good idea to do an actual realistic test and see if you have a bigger problem or not. All right, so let's tackle this monster hive here. So this hive overwintered with it has 3 deep boxes. So this was a really strong hive going into winter, and you know, so it had 3 boxes that were all pretty full of bees and honey. I would say 2 of the boxes were pretty full of bees, and then another box was mostly full of honey. So we just left it 3 deeps. I usually would try to reduce it down to just 2 boxes going into winter, but this one was super strong, and so it's okay to leave it, you know, 3 boxes if they all have quite a bit of bees in it. So we left it. I might go ahead and pull it down to just 2 boxes today. Let's just see how they're looking. So right off the bat, I can see that I've got bees peeking at me through the inner cover, which is always a good thing to see. We've got some bees on the inner cover, which is cool. And then I've got several frames of bees, you know, looking down at the top here. So I'm going to give them some smoke and then see what we got going on. So looking between the frames, you know, I can see that they're pretty much just full of honey. You know, I don't see a lot of brood looking down between the frames. I think this top box is just a box full of honey. Yeah. So you can see they've just got gobs and gobs of honey up here. So this top box, it's got some bees in it, but it's mostly just a box completely full of honey. So I'm gonna set it aside. Oh, wow. Yep, it's full of honey. Oh, very full. So that's good. Certainly no food needed here. The next box has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 frames of bees in it. And again, I always just calculate that by looking down between the frames, and you can quickly count how many frames of bees there are in the hive. So that's a great estimation of strength, is if you count between all the frames, see how many frames of bees there are, and then total them up across the whole hive, you know, it's a good estimation of the overall strength. So I am going to start with the second frame here and see what we have going on kind of as we're getting down into this primary brood nest area. Oh, so cool. Look at this. How cool is this? I mean, there's nothing like in the early spring just seeing all this fresh new brood in a hive. So, you know, we've got pollen, we've got honey up here in the corners, we've got pollen, a beautiful ring of pollen, beautiful frame of brood. You know, this hive just is meeting expectations. So I'm gonna set that frame aside. The outside frame here, I don't usually look at the outside frame, I usually just leave it be, but I'm gonna take a quick peek. So, worth doing. This is pretty much a frame of pollen. So you can see the pollen, of course, the honey around the edges, and then you've got this multicolored pollen, mostly kind of that yellow, a little bit of orange. Probably some from henbit, some from the plums starting to bloom. Dandelion is often that darker colored pollen, but you know, beautiful frame of pollen. Exactly what I want to see this time of year. Notice I don't really have pollen patties on this hive. We'll talk about pollen patties a different time. You know, usually we feed those in the fall, but the only time I really feed them in the spring is if there's a week to 10 days of cold and the bees can't get out and forage. Then I might give them a pollen patty, because with all this brood in the hive, without pollen for 10 days, they'll start cannibalizing the brood. So if I've got like a 10-day cold front where it's not over about 55 degrees and the bees can't get out and fly, then I'll throw some pollen patties on. But that doesn't usually happen, but if it does, the pollen patty doesn't hurt. So I'll let you guys see if you can spot the queen on this frame. But the queen is on this frame. She's looking absolutely beautiful. So if you haven't seen her yet, she's right here. So she looks great. We'll probably go ahead and requeen in April. We'll requeen all these hives because they haven't been requeened since last year. So in our April webinar, we'll talk about requeening, and we'll do a demonstration out in the bee yard on how to requeen. So this next frame, I left it in here because it happens, and somehow a medium frame got left in a deep box. And so you can see what happens when you have a medium frame stuck in a deep box. The bees will turn it into a deep frame. So the interesting thing is, usually when they draw out excess comb, it's drone comb. And so all that comb there at the bottom of this frame, all of this is all drone brood. When they draw out this excess comb or an extra sheet of comb, it's almost always drone comb. So you can see the drone, these are actually drone cells. You can see they're kind of larger, especially these down here. They're larger and bumpier than the worker bee cells. What some beekeepers do, and it's really not a bad idea, what some beekeepers do is they'll actually do this, even commercial beekeepers, they'll do this intentionally. They'll have a medium frame and a deep box. They might have a couple of these. And then every time they go into the bee yard, the bees will have drawn out fresh drone comb, and then the queen will lay drones in it, and then they'll just scrape it off and throw it away. And you know, the Varroa mites are more attracted to the drone brood, and so you tend to, when you scrape it off and throw it away each trip, you're getting rid of a decent chunk of the Varroa mites in the hive. It's certainly not enough to fully control Varroa mites, but it's not a terrible thing to do to help reduce down your Varroa mite levels, in addition to other forms of management. So, I mean, this hive is just really beautiful. I mean, I'm not going to go through every frame, but I mean, it's got several frames of brood. The bees aren't terribly happy because, you know, it's cloudy out here. But they've got several frames of brood in here. Looks like they've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 frames of brood in this box. We'll take a really quick peek in the bottom box. I'm not expecting them to have much down there, but about the time I go expecting something is when the bees will surprise me every time. So let's take a quick peek in the very bottom box and just see if I'm missing anything down there. Oh, yeah, see, I should just keep my mouth shut until I actually do finish an inspection, because they've actually got, this bottom box is pretty stinking full too. I wasn't expecting them to be this strong. So do as I say, not as I do. I usually recommend starting on the outside and pulling the frame out instead of starting in the middle. But if I'm in a hurry, I will often pull a frame right out of the middle. I mean, this is pretty cool. I mean, you think I haven't like seen this 1,000 times like I have, but I find it cool every time. I'm trying to get the angle right, but this frame is pretty much completely full of larvae. You can kind of see at the top center there, the lighting isn't quite good enough to get a great shot of it, but the top center there is just full of older larvae, and the bottom's full of larvae. So this is a frame completely full of larvae. It looks like in total down here, they've got, let's see how many frames of brood. They've got, that's all nectar. So if you're in a hurry, you can often look between the frames and kind of count frames of brood, because those brood, the cap brood kind of sticks out a little bit, and sometimes you can kind of see it down between the frames. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 frames of brood down here, and about 6 frames of brood up top. So this hive is a good problem, because they've already got, 9 to 10 frames of brood, and today is March 1st. So, we're a month from being able to get mated queens to make a split. So this hive, there's a good chance it's going to swarm before April 1st, let's say, when we can get queens. They're already at, 9 to 10 frames of brood. So again, it's a problem, but it's a good problem. So what I'm going to do with a hive like this is I'm going to do a couple different things. I don't want to try to split right now. You could take this hive, go ahead and split, and let them raise their own queens. But it's too early to do that. There's not often enough drones to successfully mate with the queen. I don't like letting queens open mate until I see, or I don't like to make a split and let them raise their own queen until I'm seeing adult drones in the hive. Or at the very least, adult drones hatching out. Because even after a drone hatches, it still takes a drone 2 weeks to be mature enough to mate with the queen after it's hatched. I'm not seeing drones in this hive. I'm seeing some drone brood, so I'm getting there, but not a lot. I mean, I'm seeing like a dozen drone, this whole hive might have 20 drone cells, and this is a very strong hive. So it's just too early to let the bees successfully raise their own queen. So if splitting and letting them raise their own queen isn't an option, which again, in general is not something I recommend in March anyway, then my other option is to try to give them plenty of room so that they don't swarm. Now they've already got 3 boxes, right? So that's should be enough to prevent swarming. But to be extra safe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a medium box and I'm going to put it underneath this bottom deep box. So I don't have one out here right now. Actually, hang on. I'm going to go grab one. I'll be right back. Okay, never mind. I thought I had a dead out over here with a medium on it, but opened it up and it was full of bees. So I'm going to go back to the shop and I'm going to get a medium box of empty comb and I'm going to put it underneath this deep box. Bees are very slow to swarm if you have extra space underneath the brood boxes. So I'm going to get a medium box, a shallow box would work too, that's full of empty frames, and I'm going to put it underneath this deep box and then stack all these right back up on top. And that combined with the extra deep box that I already have on top should give them plenty of space and theoretically should prevent them from swarming before I can get queens and make a split. So put a medium box underneath. You can put an empty box up on top as well. with a really strong hive like this, it's okay to give them a surplus of room, and it's going to keep them from swarming before you get queens to make a split.
Okay, well, guys, hopefully that was helpful for you. Let's see what you guys have questions about this month. Sherry, I think we have a lot of great questions. So
We really do.
what do the people want to know?
Well, I'll tell you what they want to know is where they can get that book. Every person I talk to says, the book. I keep hearing about the book. And you didn't say it, but I'm going to say it. We are at 1,000 books sold.
Fantastic. That's
Can you
wonderful.
hear that? That is incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, we just got them in stock 2 weeks ago, I think. They finally got here in
yeah,
stock. Yeah.
yeah. It's going off the shelves. You did say
That's
that, but
wonderful.
I just had to push that out there. And Cayman's super proud too, and the
Yes.
feedback is wonderful, and I'm getting it on my end, so I know it's good. All right, let's answer some questions, and these are some really good ones. Some of them I know very well. Number one, I have two honey supers that are full of honey collected last summer when I had mite treatments on. I plan to set the supers out so the other hives can collect the honey, but I'm wondering if the comb exposed to the mite treatment's okay to reuse for honey supers.
Such a good question. Well, you're on the right track as far as how to get rid of that honey. I'm actually going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But yeah, putting it out, letting the bees rob it out, it's a great way to, get that honey emptied out of those supers. As far as the comb goes, I mean, yes. I mean, most mite treatments that we're using these days have a very short half-life, which means that whatever the product is, it breaks down quickly. Certainly after almost a year, you shouldn't have any residue left, especially once that honey is emptied out of that comb. Some of the old mite treatments like fluvalinate and coumaphos would linger in that comb for
Mm.
years. But we don't use those anymore. We haven't used them for years for good reason. The treatments we use today do break down fairly quickly, and you shouldn't have any problem using that comb.
I agree. I mean, you just use it. I mean, it's gold. Comb is gold. So you
Yes,
got to hold on to it. Number two, I opened my hive and found 3 frames of brood and one full frame with just drone brood. I've never seen this before. Is it okay?
that's interesting. That's an interesting ratio. So
Yes.
maybe it's okay. If the 3 frames of brood look normal, if they're just normal worker bee cat brood, and then you've got one full frame of drone brood, my suspicion is somewhere along the way that frame got converted into drone cells, and now the queen's only laying drone brood in that frame. So as long as those 3 frames of brood look normal, you should be okay. That is a lot of drone brood. Make sure your mites are under control because mites propagate quickly in drone brood. Um, you know, it's it's probably fine. If I saw drone brood mixed in with all my other worker bee brood, that's when I would start getting concerned. But if it's isolated to the one frame and your mites are under control, you should be good.
Would you leave it, let them emerge?
If it's 100% drone brood, what I would do is once it's capped, I would actually pull it out. I
I
would
would
throw it in the
too.
freezer, kill all the varroa mites that are probably inside that capped drone brood. You don't need that many drones anyway. And then I'd probably throw that frame away, or I would put it on the very outside edge of the hive where the queen's not going to be laying in it.
Mm-hmm. I would too. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say, because I mean, it just seems like bait for them to do it over and over again. We had that happen once, but it was because, are y'all ready? I'm sure this never happened to anybody. We forgot to put a frame in. And the bees literally built a frame. I've got a picture to prove it. And James pulled it up. It was one frame and their own comb, when they build their own comb, tends to be a little larger anyway. And oh my gosh, it was nothing but drone brood. And I'm like, oh, okay, don't do that.
Right. Yeah.
Don't do
They're bad
that.
about that.
They are, they are. But anyway, good answer. Very good answer. All right, number three. I love this one. My frames have been welded to the frame box with propolis. Thinking a Dremel tool would cut it. Any suggestions? You don't know what that's like.
Well, yeah, no clue. Well, a Dremel tool would do the trick, but hopefully that's not necessary. I mean,
I hope
it
so.
can have certain breeds of bees, certain strains that go crazy with the propolis. The key is to get one frame out. And then usually you can really use that hive tool to start breaking the other frames apart. Sometimes getting that one frame out, I mean, if this is a box that hasn't been, if it had 10 frames in it and then it hasn't been disturbed in a couple years, you might have to break a frame, to get one frame out.
Yeah.
And then you should be able to start, using your hive tool to break each frame apart from the next one. But yeah, I mean, especially if there were 10 frames in it and it hasn't been touched in a few years and they were propolis heavy bees, I've had to break a frame, break the top bar off, kind of demolish one outside frame,
Yep.
get that out, throw it away, and then you can start breaking and moving the other frames.
Me too. It's the 10 frames.
Yeah.
And if anyone caught that, that's because typically we run 9 frames
Hmm.
in our hives, right, Blake? And
Right.
that just gives you room. You obviously still squeeze all those frames together, but your space on the outside allows just enough to be able to pop that frame loose. Because if you don't have room to move it, they do glue them. It's
Exactly.
hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, I wish this guy luck. I really do,
Yeah.
because I've been there on one we found off in the woods somewhere. But anyway, number 4, my bees disappeared overnight. Oh my gosh. One day last month, I checked the hive. It was very active, contained a lot of bees, guessing about 40,000 bees. 2 days later, when I checked it, all the bees were gone. No brood, no stragglers, no honey, just a lot of empty hive. What could have happened? I
Yeah.
noticed.
So I hate that feeling. It's always a guess at this point because, we didn't get to see it before. But there's a few clues that you gave that were really, really helpful.
Mhm.
There was no brood, there was
Mhm.
no bees left, and there was no honey left. So
Mhm.
that tells me a few things. Now, as far as no honey, I don't know what the honey stores were like last time you checked it. Oftentimes, once the bees leave, the hive gets robbed out. So maybe there was honey before, maybe there wasn't, could have just been robbed out now. The biggest clue to me is no brood. Because in general, this time of year, you should have brood, and you should have seen some leftover brood. So here's my guess. My guess is that the hive was queenless. It may have been
Mhm.
even queenless last fall and went overwintered queenless. And
Mhm.
that's why there's no brood at all in the hive.
Mhm.
And so once it started getting really warm, maybe they started getting robbed by neighbor bees, which is why there's no honey. And there was no queen pheromone, no brood. The bees just up and left at that point. That would be my best guess. So what either they were getting robbed and they left, and by the time you got to it, the robber bees had already cleaned everything out. The other bees were gone, or there was just no queen and they just left and merged into other hives. There's some
Mhm.
other potentials, like they could have had a crazy high mite load and absconded, but again, you probably would have seen some left brood left behind. So my
Right.
guess is they went queenless last fall. They were just old, overwintered bees at this point, and they left because there was nothing holding them there.
Totally agree. It's a sad day too.
Yeah, it
Sad
is.
day. But don't
Yep.
give up. Don't give
No,
up. You've got all that
save that
calm.
calm. Save that calm.
Right? That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Yes.
Awesome. Good answer. Number 5, I'm entering my 4th year as a beekeeper. Woohoo. I still cannot find the queens. It is so frustrating. I don't understand how to locate her when there's a gazillion, and that's a real number, gazillion bees crawling around. I need to find her in order to split.
Mm. Well, I was going to tell you, don't worry about finding her. As long as you see eggs and larvae, you have a queen. When you're
Right.
trying to make a split, it's more challenging. So I don't look for queens when I make splits either. It's way too time consuming. It takes too
Yep.
long to find her. So
Mhm.
it's messy, but you can do one or two things. You can just make your splits, ignore the queen, don't even look for whatever split method you want to use. Make all your splits, separate all the boxes, put them on bottom boards, and then go back in 3 or 4 days and see which of the splits have eggs and larvae and which
Mhm.
of the splits have started raising queen cells. The
Mhm.
splits that don't have a queen are going to have no eggs, no larvae, or no eggs, and you're going to see them starting to raise little queen cells everywhere. Those are the splits you need to add a queen to. One of
Mhm.
those splits isn't going to have any queen cells and is going to have lots of eggs. That's where your old queen is. Now you can either just leave her be, and see if she can make it another year at that point. Or you can now try to find her when there's not a gazillion bees. You're down to just one split that might have 3 or 4 or 5 frames of bees instead of maybe 2 deep boxes full of bees. So that's one option. The other option is to, when you're making your split, to shake all the bees down into the bottom box, put a few frames of brood down there, put a queen excluder on, and then stack all your splits on top above the queen excluder, trapping the old queen down below. Again, you didn't exactly find her, but you know she's downstairs. You at least know what box she's in now, and you know which of your splits need queens. So there's ways to get around it without actually finding the queen.
And we have videos on that. You've
Yeah.
got a great video on how to do, we call it the shakedown
Hmm.
method, and it works beautifully. I mean, you got some bees flying now. You got to be completely
It's
covered. You
messy.
can't go out there with
Yeah.
just a little veil
Yeah.
on. But that really works well, and we do have a video for that. So if anybody needs a visual aid for that, we've got that. So
Yes.
great answers, great
Great
questions, y'all. Keep
questions,
them coming.
guys. Awesome. And thank you, Chari, for gathering those up. And
Absolutely.
thank you, folks, for asking those. All right, so let's jump into March tips, guys. It's March is here. We're gonna fly through this. Spring blooms. We've got things. If you're in the southern half of the United States, it's blooming. We've got mustards, we've got dandelions, we've got henbit, the elms, some of the willows. You know, the bees are bringing in pollen. Here's some ways I know it's by looking at my hive and looking at the temperature. I know brood rearing in spring is here. I've got drones or drone brood. I've got eggs and larvae. I've got pollen. I've got increased flights with my bees. Things are starting to bloom. Daytime temperatures are 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s this year. So those are signs to me that, hey, spring is here, brooding has begun. And here's a map that we use a lot that we created a few years ago. Just so these are the not every year, but these are the average dates that significant pollen flows start. Now, this isn't the date that you might see one bee come in with some pollen. This is when the main significant pollen flow begins and the bees really begin rearing brood. So hopefully this map is helpful for you, but it gives you a pretty good idea of when you should see a major pollen flow, not nectar flow, but pollen flow, which tells you brood rearing is really kicking into full gear. I love these maps, the National Phenology Network. This is the leaf index for 2026. So this is how you see if things are leafing early or late compared to previous years. So the darker red, the earlier it is, the more blue, the later it is. So you can see West Coast popped out very early. Central, we got a little bit late. Out going into the upper U.S. into Oklahoma and the Kansas, it's crazy early. So again, far eastern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, you know, Arizona, New Mexico, California, very early. Central Texas, central Mississippi, central Alabama, central Louisiana was late. Now, once we get out into Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, the leafing out very, very early, up to 20 days early, parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado. So crazy, crazy. Now, this is the map of blooms. So this is when things blooming. That other one was just leafing out. So this is bloom index. So our flowers blooming earlier. This map largely similar, except that in the central Texas, central Mississippi, central Arkansas, it's not late, it's actually early for things blooming. Overall, we had a very, in the south and the west, we had a very warm February. And it looks we're going to have a warm March as well. So if you're in the south, if you're in the west, if you're even in central US, we're probably going to have a pretty early spring. That has implications when it comes to feeding because what it means is your bees are growing early. They're raising a lot of brood. Raising brood takes a lot of food, and bees don't always have the natural resources to sustain their growth rate. So, this time of year, my goal is to feed as needed to maintain at least 20 pounds of stores for a hive that is at least one deep box full of bees. I would feed 1-to-1 sugar water, use division board or top entrance rather than entrance feeders. And I'm checking 2 or 3 times through March to make sure my bees have enough food because they eat a lot of food and they eat it fast this time of year. So keep up with your hive's feeding needs because they can burn through a lot of food really fast. I'm a big fan of Complete, using the Complete product in the spring, especially if your hive needs to grow. So check that product out if you want, but I find it really helps bees grow quickly, but then the Complete all seems to increase the larva survival rate. So instead of, 10, 20% of larvae dying for patches before it turns to a pupa, it seems to increase the survival rate of that larva. We'll talk about this a lot more in April and especially May. But if you're making splits, if you're buying nooks, if you're installing packages, here's some really, really important key things to keep in mind. You want to feed 1-to-1 syrup until the first brood box is 80% full of bees and drawn comb. Once that first box is 80% full, you're going to add a second box, a second brood box. Once that's 80% full, you're ready to add your first super. If it's still before mid-June, you can add a third box, which is going to be your honey super, and stop feeding. Do you need pollen patties in March? Well, it's largely unnecessary at this point, certainly for the southern half of the United States. For the northern half, it can still be helpful. Watch for cold weeks and feed pollen patties as needed. That's really the only time I feed pollen patties in the South is if, my bees have a lot of brood and then all of a sudden we get that cold week in March where the bees can't fly for 7 days. They've got tons of brood, but now they have no pollen coming in, and sometimes they can start cannibalizing brood. So if I see, look, oh, there's going to be a cold week coming up, I might go in and give my hives a pollen patty. Or if you see less than a half a frame of cumulative pollen, it's not a bad idea to feed a pollen patty. So all that to say, I'm never a fan of just telling you to buy stuff. I'm probably a bad salesperson. I'm not going to tell you just, oh, you got to go buy pollen patties and put them on in the spring. Usually it's not necessary, but it's also definitely not going to hurt. So it's going to help. It's good for the bees. It helps them get through the cold couple days or a cold week. So if you have some leftover pollen patties, or if you just really want to go above and beyond and you really want to make a lot of splits, feeding pollen patties through March is going to help increase your brood production. It is going to help your hive grow. It is going to be a good thing. So, again, not critical. It's not like your hive's going to die without it. I strongly recommend it in the fall. In the spring, it's a good thing, even if it's not critical. March and Varroa mites. This is the month to test your hives. So most hives don't need to be treated in the spring. They usually need a summer treatment, but absolutely test your hives in March. You can go to our YouTube channel and see how to do a alcohol wash test or a test using a sticky board. It's a little less invasive, but whatever method you use, you absolutely need to do a test. Because if you're going into the spring and summer with high mite loads, your bees are going to die next summer, this summer, or this fall. If your mites are over 2 per 100 bees, March is a great time to do a mite treatment before the honey flow gets here. So absolutely strongly insist that you do a test in March to see what your Varroa mite levels are. This is a big one this time of year. As bees are coming out of winter, maybe you're requeening, maybe you're doing splits, spotting eggs and larvae is always a tough one for folks. So I put a QR code here. This is to a video I did that is how to spot eggs and larvae. So it goes through a lot of detail on even if you have bad eyesight, here's how to see if you've got eggs and larvae in your hive. So if this is a struggle for you, highly recommend scan that QR code, go to that video and watch how to spot eggs and larvae. You can also just go to our YouTube channel and just search eggs and the video will pop up on how to spot eggs and larvae. But these are some pictures, zoomed up. You can kind of see on the picture on the left, you can see those eggs. But this is such an easy one because you've got black foundation, brand new white comb, and those eggs just stand out so well. But it's not going to be that easy when the comb looks like this is much more common. This is way more normal to see. It's a darker comb, and it's really tough to see down into those cells, which is why I need to go to that video and it'll show you how to do it, even in dark comb like this. I would actually, at a glance, even though I can't see down into those cells right now, I would say this frame probably has eggs in it because you can see they've got nectar around the edge, but they've left the center of that frame open. They've cleared all the nectar out of the center of that frame. This time of year, you see that a lot. Bees are clearing space so that the queen can lay eggs. Something else you might see or might have is crowded hives and swarms in March. This is a really good problem. When your top box of your hive becomes 80% full, it's time to take action to prevent swarming, especially when we have a really warm spring like this one. Your bees are going to grow faster and they're going to swarm sooner. You've got basically three options. You can split, you can add boxes, or you can equalize. Splitting's great. The tough thing is getting queens. It's really hard to get queens in March. So most people add boxes or equalize. So both are really, really good options. You can just add another box, even add a box of foundation and give the hive some syrup and let them draw out comb. And you can use that comb for a super. You can use it for hive next year. You can use it for splits. That's one of my favorite things to do is put the bees to work. Give them a box of foundation, give them some syrup, get them to draw out comb for you. And it'll also prevent them from swarming. Or you can equalize, take frames of brood, shake the bees off of it and give it to weaker hives. And that reduces the strength of your strong hive, boosts up the strength of your weak hive. So adding boxes or equalizing is a great way to prevent swarms in the spring. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's not uncommon that you come out of spring and you're like, wow, I've got an entire super still full of honey. What do I do with all this old honey? I treated for varroa mites last fall, so I know I can't eat this honey. What do I do with all this old honey? Couple options. If a hive is less than a deep box full of bees and has more than 50 pounds of honey in the second box, unlikely to consume it. Or you can have a strong hive that has so much honey, there's not enough room for the queen to lay. You've got some options. One is to transfer that excessive honey to other hives that need it. So shake the bees off. You can give those frames of honey to put them inside a hive that is hungry. Or you can set some frames of honey 20 or 30 feet away, let the bees rob the honey out, and then put those frames back in the hive. Another thing you can do is if you're making splits, use that honey in your splits. Spread that honey out, those frames of honey out amongst the splits, and put 1 or 2 frames of honey in each split, and it'll really help boost that hive, that split. Spring requeening. So I'm going to highly encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and look at the videos, when to requeen, finding queens when you can't find queens, to really get a great grasp on how to requeen a hive. My recommendation, though, is that you try to proactively requeen every hive every year. The ideal time is April or May. I would say April is perfect. That's usually when you can get queens. It's early enough before the honey flow begins. So I really, really do recommend everybody requeen every year. Even if your hive looks like it's doing great, that queen can suddenly fail, later in the spring or in the summer. So I encourage everybody to just do splits every year. And when you do splits, go ahead and requeen at that time. So I know that was a lot of information. I try to keep it short and sweet because I know everyone's busy in the spring. I can't wait to see you in April. If you have questions, always let us know. We appreciate you guys, and I will see you all in April. Have a good month, everybody.